when we go to talking about culling, I think we really have to think about why we own cows. And this is going to make some cattle breeders upset. The only reason I own a cow is to harvest grass. And if we don't have grass, there's no reason to have a cow. It's just like being in the cropping business. If you don't have a crop come up, you don't need combine sitting around. And so we have to keep that in mind. So as we start depleting forage resources, we have less and less need for harvesting equipment. And so we need to start planning what's going to be sold, and this needs to be a part of any kind of drought plan regardless of the year. What would go first? What animal on that place is the most expendable? And we all have cattle we could cull. There's no doubt about that. We've kept them around for one reason or another just because we needed inventory. Those would be the cattle I'd sell first.
Okay.
In fact, I'd probably sell them before I wean the calves.
Yes, sir.
Because if we reduce the cow numbers quick enough, then we have more forage left for that base cow herd and the better genetics. So I'd make that step. Then you might look at early weaning those calves if you've got a good core set of cows. Now then, once you've got all the stuff you should have already sold gone, then it gets more difficult. You start looking at age, you start looking at the composition of the herd. Some people have a very young cow herd because we've been culling on them for years. And so it gets very difficult to cull those young, good genetic base cows. The cows that are most hardy in a drought are the older cows. But we always want to keep the younger genetics. And that leads to a situation where you're keeping cows that are going to cost you more, be less productive, to try to get through a drought.
That's a good point, Ron. Can you kind of talk about where the fine line would be there? Because that's exactly an issue we deal with. In other words, people don't want to sell those younger cows because they put all the money into genetics, but the problem is those younger cows, like you say, they're trying to grow, they're trying to develop, we're trying to get them bred. And I know this is a very generic question, but what age cows would I want to be looking at the hardest?
Well, I made the assumption that we'd want to have those cows that were broke mouth and all that gone already. You need to go through and check teeth on every one of them. You'll have some young cows with some broke teeth and some other things, sometimes just from one reason or another. And so you may need to go ahead and cull some cows that are a little younger age, but go ahead and get all those out. Go through them with your veterinarian. I'd suggest you go through them with your veterinarian, palpate them, check their teeth, feet, legs, udder, anything you can. Any kind of blemish, they go to town. Then if you look at, you can go back to normal years and kind of look at which cows are going to perform best. As long as they have some growth needs, they're going to be harder to keep.
Yes, sir.
First calf, second calf, and maybe even that third calf cow. But that's the one I'd start, that'd be where I'd have my cutoff. And I know the hardest thing in the world to sell that first calf or second calf, or even those replacement heifers. But from a 5 to a 10-year-old cow across most of Texas was the most productive cows for most operations. Actually, the most reproductively sound ones are probably the 10-year and up that are solid mouth.
Right.
And if you get thinking about it, they are your core genetic base. We want to think about these young ones down here, but we're looking for longevity, ability to survive in a forage production system. Those old cows that have lasted on your place are the ones you really want to start over with.
So they've proved themselves.
They proved themselves. So don't be so eager to sell them early on, particularly if they've got good teeth.